We'll start to describe the femur. The femur form the skeleton of the proximal segment of the lower limb, which is the thigh. And the femur in the lower limb correspond to the humerus in the upper limb. And it is classified as long bone as it has upper end, lower end, and the shaft in between. The upper end has number one, head, and the head is directed medially in order to articulate with the hip bone in order to form this joint, which is the hip joint. And then this is the neck. This is the neck, which is more longer than the neck of the humerus. Then this is the greater trochanter, that lies lateral in the opposite direction to the head. This is the greater trochanter that lies lateral. And this small projection is known as lesser trochanter, and the lesser trochanter project posteromedial. Lesser trochanter project posteromedial. On the medial surface of the greater trochanter, we have this depression on the medial surface of the greater trochanter, which is known as trochanteric fossa. Trochanteric fossa. So these are the landmarks for the upper end of the femur. Head, neck, greater trochanter lateral, lesser trochanter posteromedial, and on the medial surface, this is the trochanteric fossa. What about the lower end of the femur? The lower end of the femur has these two large elevations, which are known as medial femoral condyle. Medial and lateral femoral condyles. These two condyles are fused anteriorly in order to form the patellar surface of the femur. Because of this part of the femur here in the model, so here this surface of the femur, which is the patellar surface, is the surface that articulates with this bone, which is the patella, in order to form a part of the hip of the knee joint. But these two condyles are separated posteriorly in order to form this notch. So these are artificial for the fixation of the skeleton, not a part of the skeleton. So the two condyles are separated posteriorly in order to form this notch, which is known as intercondylar notch. Intercondylar notch. And in relation to each condyle, we have this elevation, this large elevation. So this is the medial femoral condyle with this large elevation, which is known as medial epicondyle. Epi means above. And here also, this is the lateral femicondyle that shows this large elevation, which is known as lateral epicondyle. And also, in relation to the medial femoral condyle, we have this small tubercle, which is very important for attachment of one of the muscles of the adductor, which is known as adductor tubercle. So this small elevation is very important, which in relation to the medial femoral condyle, which is known as adductor tubercle. On the opposite side, we have here this groove, but sorry, this groove is hidden here by this screw. This groove here that lies on the lateral surface of the lateral femoral condyle, this groove is known as groove 4 popliteus, for the attachment of a very important muscle in the lower limb, which is known as popliteus muscle. What about the shaft of the femur? The shaft of the femur is characterized by a long shaft. This shaft is more or less convex anteriorly. This will be helpful in the identification of the side of the femur. The shaft of the femur is smooth from all aspects except posteriorly. Posteriorly, the shaft of the femur in its middle part forms this broad border, which is known as linea aspera. Linea aspera. What is the meaning of word aspera? Word aspera means rough. The linea aspera has two borders, medial border and lateral border. These two borders will be widely separated in the lower third of the posterior surface of the shaft of the femur in order to form these two ridges, medial and lateral supracondylar ridges, enclosing in between this surface which is known as popliteal surface of the femur. Take care, this surface is the patellar surface of the femur, while this surface is the popliteal surface of the femur. Word popliteal means back of the knee. So again, this is the linea aspera. The linea aspera present only in the middle third of the posterior surface of the shaft of the femur. It is formed of two lips. These two lips will be widely separated from each other to form medial and lateral supracondylar ridges, enclosing in between this surface, which is known as the popliteal surface of the femur. In the upper part of the posterior surface, the two lips of the linea aspera will be widely separated from each other in order to form this surface, which is known as pectineal surface of the femur. And the medial lip will continue as a spiral line, and the spiral line that terminates anteriorly with intertrochanteric line, and the lateral lip of the linea aspera will continue superiorly to form this rough area, which is known as the gluteal tuberosity. And above the gluteal tuberosity, we have this crest, which is the intertrochanteric crest. And the intertrochanteric crest shows this elevation, which is known as the quadrate tubercle. So these are the features for the shaft of the femur. So note the two trochanters are connected anteriorly by intertrochanteric line and connected posteriorly by intertrochanteric crest. And above the intertrochanteric crest, we have this tubercle, which is known as the quadrate tubercle. This is about the general features of the femur. What about the side determination? Again, where is the superior from inferior by the head of the femur or by the two femoral condyles that directed downward. How I identify anterior from posterior? The two condyles fused anteriorly, but they are widely separated posteriorly by this notch, which is known as intercondylar notch. And as I mentioned, the shaft of the femur is convex anteriorly. How I can identify medial from lateral? Again, by the head of the femur. So the head of the femur is your landmark for superior and the medial direction. Second, what about the joints formed by the femur? So the femur superiorly forms this joint, which is the hip joint superiorly, and inferiorly it forms this joint together with the tibia, which is the knee joint. For those postgraduate students, we have a depression in the middle of the head of the femur. This depression is known as fovea capitis. Capitis means head. Fovea means a small depression in the head of the femur. This is for the attachment of a very important ligament that will be mentioned later on, inshallah, in the hip joint lecture, inshallah. Then to proceed